I didn't put YouTube on.
Hello, everybody. Happy
Hello.
Monday. We've got a bunch of people already here ready for Monday Jumpstart. Hello, Margie and Glynis and baby girl Shanita. Good to see you guys. Hi, Tina. Well, we welcome you here to Marianne's Monday Jumpstart. I can speak. It wasn't my tongue that was operated on. So
Are you sure?
no, I'm not totally sure. If you're watching on the replay, we welcome you here, and we hope that someday soon you'll be able to join us on Marianne's Monday Jumpstart, which happens every Monday at noon Mountain Time from noon to 2, where we are primarily going to be jumpstarting our creativity by looking at using and trying new things with all the things that you have in your stash that you don't know what to do with, you've never used, or you only used once and you need new ideas and different ways to use it. So today we are talking about embossing powder. Today you will get a basic embossing, variations on embossing, and we have some tips, tricks, and secrets about embossing for you. And as we go along, if you have any questions, if you will type 4 question marks and then your question, then it will pop out at me a whole lot easier. So if you'll just try to remember, I know this is new, if you'll try to remember to type 4 question marks and then your question. Now, something new in StreamYard is that I can in StreamYard mark your comment with a star so that I have the ability then to go back and just pull the starred ones and look at them. So as I see questions, I will mark them, even though I might not answer them at that moment. I'm going to mark them so that I make sure that we get to all those questions before we're finished. Okay, so let's see here. Want to make sure. Okay, we've had some more people come in here. Hi, Joni. Happy Monday. Hi, Kathy. Good morning, Dawn. Well, noon. Oh, it is Martin Luther King. Is it Martin Luther King or Martin Luther King Jr.? It's Martin Luther King Jr. Day. Yeah. Happy Martin Luther King Jr. Day. If any of you are off work and able to join us today because it is a holiday, we are glad for that holiday and glad that you are here. Hi, Cheryl. Hello, Julie. Bye, honey. Love you. Mr. H is out the door with Lucy. Let's see. Oh, Julie, we just got started, so you are just fine. Will you still answer if I only put 4? If you put 4 question marks, I will answer a random question for you, Tina. Yeah, if you put 4 question marks, I'm going to star it and make sure that I get to all the starred comments before we leave. Because some of them we will cover as we go through this. And so if I don't answer it immediately, don't worry. And when we get to the end, I will ask, are there any questions that we did not cover, just in case I missed one? But if you put 4 question marks before your question, I think that will help me to see them. They'll jump out quickly. Also, type it in caps. If you have a question, type 4 question marks and then the question in all caps. That'll be super easy for me to see, and so I can grab that and start it to make sure we get to it. So, quick recap. It's test time. Deb, you ready for test?
Me? Okay.
You know I'm going to do this every time. 2022 is the year of 3 things for happy paper people, right? Oh. Candy, ready for test? It's the year of 3 things. Okay, you guys in chat.
Not fair. I have the slide that we did.
Oh, well, that's okay, because some people might need. Hi, Yolanda. Happy to see you. Everybody in chat. 2022 is the year of 3 things for happy paper people. It is what? It is the year we are going to. Julie said it. Get organized.
Get organized.
Yep, the year we're going to get organized. And number 2, it is the year we are going to. Looking for number 2. Has anybody put number 2 in there?
Use our stuff.
That's number 3.
Oh.
We always say that it's number 2 and it's number 3 because it's the save the best for last. Release our creativity. And that's kind of an all, that's Debbie's paper. Debbie buys paper.
Thank you, Glennis. Yes.
Yep. Release our creativity. That's kind of all encompassing. Releasing our creativity means trying all the new things, using all the things that we've never used, learning new ways to use them. Not letting stuff just sit around, but we're actually going to do something with it, trying new things that we've never tried before, and just releasing that inner creativity that we know we have that we just maybe haven't known how to release. And number 3, Debbie.
Use more paper so I can buy more paper.
That's most of our favorite. Use our
my
stash.
favorite one.
Number 3. Use our
Use our
stash.
stash.
Several of you already said that. Debbie buys paper. I love the way she says use more paper so we can buy more paper because we all love the pretty paper. Excuse me. My throat
I
is
think it's
still...
just sometimes, it's pretty and we're afraid to use it. We're afraid to cut into it. I am. You
Yes.
talked about that on the first one. I'm afraid to cut into my paper, or, ooh, this is pretty. I want it to be the perfect project. Well, you know what? Any project that I do, I think is the perfect project.
You are right. I totally agree with you. And what I found is I've been the same way. Totally afraid to cut into it. It's so pretty. I don't want to ruin it. And then it sits on my shelf. And then once every blue moon, I pull it out and look at it and go, oh yeah, that's so pretty. Well, I'm not enjoying it if it's sitting on my shelf. But if I actually make something out of it and then put that up on the wall or on the shelf or, somewhere where I can actually look at something that I made out of it, I am finding that I have much more enjoyment of that thing that I made with it than just the paper pad. And I didn't realize that. I thought that I would really miss just having that beautiful paper pad. So, besides that, there's always, 4 times a year, Stamperia keeps bringing out more beautiful paper. We can't just keep adding it. We've got to use some of it. So, and isn't that why we started buying it to begin with? Because we wanted to make beautiful things. Hi, Lois.
No, I bought it because it's so pretty.
We bought it because it's so pretty. And now we're going to
wallpaper
make
my
pretty
room with
things
it.
with it. Oh, Dawn took advantage of the Totally Tiffany warehouse sale this last weekend. More organizing. Nice. Oh, shoot. Dawn, is it over? Was it only on the weekend? Margie was always bad at tests. Well, I'm going to do this every time, Margie, so you'll start to remember them.
I'll be right back. For a second.
Margie's going to make a Post-it note and put it on my computer. That's what I have, Margie. I have to because, otherwise. Tina says you do awesome work, Candy. Yep, beautiful work. And isn't it much more rewarding to look at a beautiful folio that Candy makes or a beautiful album that Debbie makes than just the paper pad itself? Margie, okay, all right. Margie started making with her new and pretty paper. If Margie started making with her new and pretty paper, then we all have to. So number 1 is get organized. Number 2 is release our creativity. And number 3 is use our stash. And we have lots of things planned this year to use our stash. Tuesday's Tips in 10, which is tips on a particular topic in 10 minutes or less, will help us get organized every week. There will not be a Tuesday's Tips in 10 tomorrow, unfortunately, because I could only get 1 recorded last week before surgery. So there won't be 1 tomorrow. But I want to have 52 this year, so I'll probably make it up to you and have 2 one day. Release our creativity. We're doing a lot on Mondays where we are going to try new things. We're going to pull out those things. I have a list of all the things that you've told me that you spent money on and they're sitting there. You don't know what to do with them or don't know how to use them or need more ideas than just the one basic use. So we're going to do that a lot on Monday, which will also help us use our stash. But we're also going to have lots of lives of mass makes. And the mass makes are going to help us not only use our stash, but release our creativity and turn our stash from supplies into usable elements to grab and go and create more things much more quickly. So let's see. Number 2, Julie, you got that. Release creativity. Okay. Friday to Sunday. I missed it. Well, no. Julie, did you get that? Number 1, get organized. 2, release our creativity. And number 3, use our stash. Okay, so today we're talking about embossing powder. Many of you, it's kind of why we're doing it up front, because a lot of you told me that you have a lot of embossing powder. It seems really cool. You buy it, but you don't really know how to use it. It's kind of scary if you've never used it before, not sure how to do it, or maybe how to do more than just the basic embossing with it. So we're going to start with the basics. So if you've got embossing powder and you've never used it, we're going to go over how to use it from the base, just the general normal use, and then we're going to take off from there, because we've got lots of tips, tricks, and secrets and ideas for you on how to use the embossing powder. And then we'll touch on embossing glaze at the end, which is a little bit different than embossing powder, because Tim Holtz, has the embossing powder and the embossing glaze. They are very similar but different. So my throat is still a little wonky from being intubated and surgery. So if I start coughing, I might just mute myself, get a drink, get it settled down, and Candy or Debbie will start talking.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
She's not paying us for that, lady. So yeah. Don't be surprised if the quality is subpar.
Hey. I always say I've got the best help in the world here. This is the best team around. So don't make a liar out of me. Okay, so embossing basics. What do you need to emboss? Well, now some of you, as soon as I say this, you're going to say, but you could do this or that or the other, and you can. I'm talking basics here. You need some embossing ink. So here's a Nuvo Clearmark embossing ink. Here's a Versamark watermark stamp. That's an embossing ink. Here's a mini of the Versamark. Here is a Tim Holtz Distress embossing ink, which is good for distress powders. And here's a Versamark Dazzle. Okay, so there's a basic. Oh, and here is a Distress Embossing Dabber that you could dab on instead of having a pad. And of course, there's always the Versamark, or they all have an ink refill, just like any other ink. They do have a refill. Okay, so you need an embossing ink. Let's get that out of here for a minute. So here is our embossing inks. I will just start with those two right there in the middle. Okay, and then you need embossing powder. Now, embossing powder can be tricky. Embossing powder, all embossing powder is not created equal. Here's an example. Some of these are very, very old. So if the brands, I don't know if they're even around anymore. But I want to show you because of the different types. So embossing powder comes everything from chunky, large, embossing glitter and puffy, which are all big types of powder, to regular, down to fine, down to extra fine. And so it's kind of like glitter. Glitter is everything from the great big chunky, almost sequin-like, all the way down to extra fine. So here's an example. This is a Wow brand. Now, I know a lot of these are going to have a hard time focusing because they're very glittery and shiny, and the cameras always have a difficult time with that. I will do my best. So this is a Wow brand, and it is embossing glitter. Embossing glitter tells me that it's pretty chunky, and it is. Not the chunkiest of chunkies, but it is pretty chunky because glitter is pretty chunky. This one, I can kind of see by looking at it that there's a little bit of chunk in it, although not too bad. This one, oops, I just lost a light. How's the light? Is the light okay? Do I need to get that other one back on?
it's good.
We're really going to have a hard time.
You need to put you full screen right now while you're doing it.
Okay, I can do that.
There's a glare coming off your glass tablet, so
Yeah,
yeah.
and that's always because it's glass. It's
Yeah,
best
so.
to use glass or acrylic underneath you, or an easily cleanable craft mat when you're embossing. I know we're going to have a really hard time focusing today, so please be patient with that. And that's why I'll try to read everything and not put it here for you to have to read yourself. But this is, it says embossing powder Galactica tinsel, and I can see the chunks in that. When I can see the chunks, I know it's going to be pretty chunky. Here's another one that it kind of looks like glitter, but it looks like a chunky glitter. So I know that's going to be a chunky. So all those are kind of chunky ones. If it says glitter, tinsel, um, what are some of the other words that they use? Sometimes it'll say large, shimmery. Large, anything that indicates that it's not just a standard or a fine. Typically, if they are otherwise, okay, so like this one, maybe this will focus because it's not quite as glittery. This says embossing powder gold, and underneath it, it says super fine detail. So I know that's going to be a super fine powder. That's going to be a super fine embossing powder. This one is also a super fine. This one says high gloss clear. It does not say, but when I look at the powder, I can tell that the powder is super fine. If it looks like sand and you can see all the granules, that's a pretty chunky one. If it looks like sand and you were to pick up a handful and it's just a handful of such super fine sand that you couldn't pick out granules, then that's a fine one. This one, I don't know, maybe they all say on there. I haven't looked. This one says detail embossing. Okay, anything that says it's detailed or super detailed, fine, super fine, those are going to be very fine powder. And what that means is that, let's say you stamp out this butterfly. If you have a chunky embossing powder and you use it on this one, and the bigger the chunks are, well, let me back up here. Embossing powder is basically just shredded up or torn up or chunked up, whatever you want to say, plastic. So little teeny tiny bits of plastic. So if it's chunky and I sprinkle that powder on here and then I put the heat on it and that melts it, the larger those chunks are, the more they puff and the more they spread, because they're going to melt large, because they are large. You're not going to get very much detail because it's just going to be a big blob of embossing powder. So if I have something, let's say I have a circle and I just want to emboss that whole circle and I'm going to put it on something and then I'm putting something right in the center. It's okay if that's big and chunky because I just want the entire thing covered. There's no detail there. So I might use a chunky one and just let it all melt together, cover the whole thing. But if I'm doing this butterfly and I've got a lot of detail on it, then I want a super fine or a fine, at least a fine powder, so that when it melts, they're teeny, teeny, tiny bits of plastic that when they melt, they're not going to spread and take up a big space. They are going to retain the space that they're in and still give me that fine detail. Does that make sense? If you guys see questions and I miss them, will you just mention it while if I get on a roll talking about something? Because I want to make sure that I can star them to make sure that I get those questions. So, okay, so the finer you have in detail, the finer you want your powder. That's one real important point to remember. The less detail, the bigger the powder can be. And so that's how you would choose that. So I've got some Nuvo here. I've got some Ranger here. This is Moxie. I pulled out a couple of fun colors that are way old, picked up even at an estate sale. This is Hot Pink. I can't even see what the brand is because it's worn off completely. And this one is Mango Melon Stampin' Stuff. I think that's Stampin' Up. They are, they're old. So, but they're both pretty powdery. So that tells me they're both pretty fine. We should be able to do something fun with those. Try them out. At least I haven't even tried them out. Picked them up at a estate sale, like I said. Okay, so you've got your ink pad and you've got your embossing powder. Then you need a couple other things. I saw somebody put in there that you need a powder tool, a powder buddy, or whatever else you called it. Let me put this back. Candy and Debbie, can you show your powder tools? A lot of you probably have this powder tool because we've had them at the sale a bunch of times. So it's got, it doesn't even, this is an EK Tools, we're memory keepers. They can have cornstarch or baby powder in them. It just needs to be a fine powder. And this would be difficult to use on a large surface because it's a very small brush here. But if I had to, I could swipe it across the surface to cover it. So now you see Debbie and Candy both have one that they made. You can purchase them, but honestly, Candy whipped it up while we were online here in less than 5 minutes. All you need is a what do you call it? A porous but not too porous fabric, and just sew 3 sides. Well, fold it in half. So then you only have to sew 2 sides, and you put your cornstarch or baby powder in, and then sew across the end, and boom, there you have it. So easy to do. Now, if you don't have one and you don't want to make one right now, or maybe you just don't want to make one or you don't sew, another option is just grabbing cornstarch or baby powder. This is an almost empty container of cornstarch. And I would use this with a brush. The softer the brush, the better. I love this one because I can cover a big area. And all I would do is just get a little bit of cornstarch on here, like this, just getting it out of the lid, whatever's there, and then just run it over my area like that. So what's the purpose of doing that? You run your powder buddy. Is that what you call them? What are they called? Powder tool or embossing buddy? I don't know. What are they called, Debbie?
Embossing buddies or
powder
embossing powder, or
you run that across what you're going to emboss. And there really is a purpose for it. And I have tried it without it to see if it really makes a difference. And I can tell you that, yes, it really does. What this does is take away the static cling, the static electricity. I need to run it through my hair. I have that winter static electricity going on.
here's what I did this morning without using the embossing buddy. And those are my fingerprints right
Perfect.
here.
Yes, perfect. Can you guys see that? So hi, Bev. So when you run this over whatever you're going to emboss, that piece of paper that Debbie's showing, then it removes the static electricity. So when you put embossing powder on the item that you stamp down, it doesn't stick everywhere else on the paper. It only sticks where your embossing ink is. So then when she taps the paper off, then the embossing powder is all going to go back off of the paper. Now, she didn't use the embossing buddy or any kind of powder tool. And so embossing powder stuck to the paper right there where her fingers were. She's got fingerprints. I had one around here where it was stuck just little bits and pieces all over the paper. And it just does not give you a clean image because you've got little bits and pieces of embossing powder everywhere. So if you want to emboss a clean image, be sure you use any kind of powder, and that's the only reason for doing that. So I thought I had one right there, but I don't. Okay, so you've got your powder tool or my brush, either way, that'll work. And then we need something to catch the embossing powder as we put it onto the paper or whatever we're going to emboss. So Debbie is using a coffee filter. I'm going to make you big for just a second so that you can see. So as she pours her embossing powder on, she will hold it over the coffee filter. And so everything that spills off of it goes onto the coffee filter. That way you don't have to worry about just using a teeny tiny bit. And once she's got it on there, she can tap her paper on there. All the excess comes off. Then she can pick up the coffee filter and fold it in half and let it just funnel right back into the container for her embossing powder. Candy is going to use, there's Candy. Candy's going to use a piece of paper. This is a super simple way to do it. Just take an 8.5 by 11 piece of paper, fold it in half so you have a crease in the middle, and that crease acts like a little valley. And when you hold your embossing paper over it, everything catches there. You can lift the paper up on the two sides, and it will all go to the middle to the valley, and then you can just tap that easily on the edge of your embossing powder container, and it will all go right back in there. I have to show you options or samples of different types of trays that you might use. There are a number of them out there. Some of them you find in the jewelry making section. This one might even have come from Home Depot with painting, and it's a large one. I don't like it quite as well for embossing. I do like it when I'm working with jewelry so that things don't roll everywhere or, all around. It's great for glitter. I do like it for glitter, but it's large and it's got a big mouth here, so I don't like it as well for embossing powder. But it works. It'll work. Here's a smaller one, two that are pretty similar. The pink one you've probably recognized. It's from Dress My Craft, and we've had it at the sale. And this one has two holes. One hole is smaller than the other, so it's good for glitter and embossing powder, as well as small beads. And if you have chunkier, you can bring it all to this corner, tap it all to this corner, bring it out the larger hole. If it's a smaller or more fine, tap it all to this corner. And I do like that the corner is covered, and so it doesn't come out over the edge while I'm trying to put it back in. Here is another brand of the same type of thing, which has just one hole where it all comes to the center there. And again, right at the base, it is covered, so it doesn't all come out. And then Dress My Craft has a mini version that I really love because it doesn't take up a lot of space on my desk, and it's just easy to handle. And just doing one, in fact, I've got an order ready to go into Dress My Craft if anybody wants these. Off the top of my head, I want to say they were $2.50, $3 at the most. They were really inexpensive. I think they were $2.50, $2.75. But I'm going to order a bunch of these for myself, because if I'm embossing, when I emboss, it's kind of like when I do glitter. If you saw the tutorial that I put out for glitter, when I do it, I do a whole bunch because I don't want to do it all the time. I don't want glitter everywhere. I don't want embossing powder everywhere. So I will emboss lots of sentiments, lots of words, lots of different types of embellishments that you'll see that we'll do today, and have things ready to go. And so I like to have multiples, and these others just take up so much space on my desk. Now that I've seen these from Dress My Craft, I'm going to get myself several of these so I can set multiples out and have them for different colors, so I don't have to completely clean it out before I go to the next color. If I'm doing a mass make of embossing sentiments, for example, and I've got the sentiments and I want to take this one and do one in 5 different colors, and then I take the next sentiment that I've die cut and I want to do one in 5 different colors, I can have 5 of these out and I don't have to clean it between each one. It's just good to go. And it doesn't take up much space. They were inexpensive, so I like that. Now, if you don't have any of those, I mean, you've always got a piece of paper. We all always have a piece of paper. Here's just a couple of, I don't even remember what these came with. They came with something. They're just basically plastic trays. They're pretty shallow, less than an inch. Plastic trays, they work. I would just tap it, bring everything to the corner, and then gently bring it out of the corner to put it back in. So you can always find something like that to use. Always options. And if I want to, I might use all of those today in lining them up so I don't have to clean up between each one, because I am one-handed and it's not making things easy. But a piece of paper folded in the center to get that valley is always a super easy way to go. Okay, so those are all the things that you need. Now there are options. Some of you are probably already thinking, but wait a minute, you don't have to have that embossing pad. You are right. And there are other options, and we're going to get into that. But right now we're going to start with basic embossing. Let me get everybody back here on the screen. Basic embossing. Julie, did you get that bot? Margie? I should make Margie a wrench too so that she could get the bots. Candy, maybe you got it. Glennis?
No,
Probably
I
already
didn't
got it.
see it.
Glennis is usually on those so fast. I just saw it. De-static back. That's what you call it. Oh, Julie just did something amazing. Julie, am I going to want to wait until we're in the middle of this and then show it? Oh, yeah. Okay, Julie, I'm going to hang on to it. I've got it. That is amazing. But I'm going to hang on to it and show it in a minute, okay? Okay, so let's start with some basic embossing, and we're all going to just grab a stamp or two, and we're going to put it on the embossing ink. We're going to go to paper, and then we're going to put the powder on it and use whatever tool we're using to collect the powder, and then apply the heat to it. And then I'll talk a little bit about the heat. I'm going to use this Nuvo is new. I haven't used it yet, so I'm going to use that today. Why not? I always like trying new things in front of you, so if they flop, you see exactly what I see. Thank you, Margie. Glennis is always on that. Okay, so when it comes to what paper are you going to emboss on, we all have scrap bins, and I when I'm going to do sentiments, first thing I do is go to my strip scrap bin, and I keep one that's just for strips, because if I'm going to do sentiments, then words, individual words will stamp really nicely on strips, and you can stamp a whole row of words along here and then cut them apart or cut them out with a punch, or just save them on here until you need them individually. So I always recommend that you go to your scrap bin first to use up that paper. Most things you're going to emboss are not going to be huge. Now I have this here. This is a piece of watercolor paper, and that's to remind me to talk about the type of paper. This is regular scrapbook paper. It's a thin cardstock, but it's a cardstock. You could stamp right on that. That would be a nice little background. Punch around it with a little oval shape or something would make a very nice sentiment. These strips are just regular solid color cardstock. Watercolor cardstock, has, it should show there, it has texture. There's a lot of texture in watercolor cardstock. You can emboss on it, but you may have to do it a couple of times, and you may not get as clean of an embossed sentiment or image as you would otherwise, because your surface is not smooth. And so the embossing ink that you stamp on is only going to go across the surface. So you've got all these little ridges and grooves because it's very textured. And if you push really hard to get down in those grooves, then you may be spreading out the stamp. So instead of having a clean line on your word or your image, it's now a fat line and things become a little more muddied. So it kind of depends what you want. I do have a sample. It's not that it is bad. Where did I put the sample? Excuse my arm that's trying to grab everything here. I'll show you this while they start getting their item going. Okay, this is not watercolor paper, but this is a textured, there you can see, this is a textured cardstock. Textured cardstock acts similar to watercolor. because it's got the grooves and ridges. When you feel it, you can feel the texture, the rough. And the rougher it is, the less crisp your image is going to be. So this is a stamp that has 4 butterflies and moss on it. And I stamped it on there and embossed it. And you can see the shiny embossing. And it worked perfectly. But you can see that there's also a lot of space that's maybe not perfectly solid. Let me see if this is... Here's another stamp of the same thing on a different kind of paper. And actually, it might not be the best example stamp because there's a lot of open space on the stamp. So it actually did a pretty darn good job. But the top here, the top butterfly, that's a good one. You can see the solid green on the bottom one, and the one on the left or on the top, you can see a lot of white space, and that's the texture from the paper where it doesn't go down in. So if that's the kind of image that you're looking for, or there's already some color there and you just want maybe not as heavy of an impression, but more of a light, image there, then that it works. Not that it won't work. Just be aware of what you're going to get. The other thing is when you emboss something, it's not a one and done or a one and it's messed up, because sometimes you emboss it and you say, oh, it needs a little bit more. And you put more embossing powder on it, or more. If you do it while it's hot, like you heat it and it's still hot, you can dip it into the embossing powder and then heat it again. If it's not hot, if it's cooled off, then you have to put more embossing ink on it. And you could do that with a pen, or you could restamp it. That's where you want to make sure that you have maybe one of those stamping, what do you call them? The stamping platforms. Where you can get it in the exact same place. Because I've tried putting it over it and getting it in the exact same place, and maybe 50-50 I get it in the same place, and 50-50 I don't. It's just a hair off, and that hair just makes it look not crisp. It now looks a little bit muddled, and I wish I hadn't done it. So I'm going to grab, let's see if I can grab some word. What have I got here already on here? The word happiness is on there. I'm going to leave that happiness on there, and I'm just going to do the on this black right here. So what are you guys doing? Okay, look what Candy's doing. She stamped an image, and then she's putting different color on different parts.
Now, these are the Tim Holtz people.
Of the oh, cool. Okay. That's we're not even there yet. Candy's way ahead.
I know.
She's way ahead. But that is another cool. Okay. Debbie, Debbie already did some words there. You can see.
Here's some words. Here's a word.
Cool. Okay. Candy, did you do any basic words? Or have you been working on this?
I'm going to draw them out in just a minute.
Okay.
I'm just going to write mine.
Now, once you've got your ink on, you need to stamp it fairly quickly. And once you stamp it, you need to put the powder on fairly quickly. Once the powder is on, you do not have to heat it immediately. So you could stamp and powder a whole bunch of things. And then you could sit down, you can do an assembly line, and then you could sit down with your heat tool and heat all of them at the same time. See that little bit of shine there that says happiness? Let's get us some embossing powder. I'm going to use this gold right here. This is a Ranger gold. It's always better to put too much powder on, more powder than you need rather than less, because you just tap off what you don't. Oh, I already messed up. What didn't I do?
The powder.
Yep, I did not do the powder. I did not. And I could tell as soon as I can see all these little tiny bits of powder up here. I can see them. And I don't want to take my brush and go over it, or I'll rub the powder right off of the word. So I can do what I can. I could grab a paintbrush and get some of this off, but there's little bits of powder all around, and that's my bad, sitting right here, and I did not use the powder tool. This one might be savable. They're not always. Okay, so I'm going to set that aside, and I tried to do something on this one so I can show you another. I'm going to turn the heat tool on for a second. It doesn't take very long, but you do have to learn your own heat tool, how long it takes to heat it. This is a new heat tool for me. I'm going to put it on low because it's a shop heat tool that gets really hot. I still need to learn how far away I need to hold it from it. So let's go for this. Okay. I don't think that was even 30 seconds, was it? Not, probably not. Okay, so I can see some little bits of powder here and there because I didn't use the powder tool, and that's my fault. What I kind of tried to do was not get a perfect impression on my, with my stamp. And so you can see on the N, there's a little bit of the N that feels like it's not quite there. The H is a little bit wonky on top. It's missing just a little bit. I don't know if that'll show up because it's so shiny. But there are ways to take care of that. If there was multiple places, I would probably put this back in my Misty or whatever stamping tool and re-stamp it with ink and re-pour powder on it to make sure I have this close by, re-pour powder on it just over the whole thing and then reheat it. But there's only a couple little spots. So I'm going to take an embossing pen. This is a Nouveau Clear Mark pen. I also have a Ranger Distress embossing pen. And 2 sales ago, we had a hot buy that was this cutting machine pen that you could put in your Cricut or your Silhouette for embossing. And it is an embossing pen. I think we had them for 2 for $1.50. It is not pink. I just ran it over something pink. Yeah, so any embossing pen, any brand, doesn't matter. I'm going to take that, and I don't want to get it everywhere, but I want to try to kind of fill in that in right there just a tiny bit. And I'm going to fill in that H right over the top and right next to it. And on the bottom where it's a little bit lacking. See if there's anywhere else. Nope, I think it's pretty good everywhere else. And then all I'm going to do is put a tiny bit of powder on those 2 spots. And you can see where powder is, where it's not shiny because it hasn't been melted yet. That's what embossing is melting the plastic. Okay, here we go again. Okay, there we go. And now my happiness is filled in. My N is filled in, my H is filled in, and it's a nice and shiny, happy gold. Now, when I did that, I was watching it closely because as soon as it melts, I want to stop it because I don't want to keep remelting what's already there and to the point of burning it. So let me show you a sample of that. So here's one where I did multiple things wrong. So you could see this is a white paper. I'm going to make this big here. The white paper. And so I stamped multiple images on it. And first of all, you can see that I did not use my powder tool, right? Because you can see right in the middle, you see little pieces of powder all over the place. And as I use the heat tool, they melted. So they're melted on there now. So that's not coming off. And so if I wanted a clean image, not going to happen. And then right here, you can see that the heat tool was left too long on the image. And so the image has become a little bit blurry because it just kept melting and melting and melting, and it burned the paper. If your paper starts to turn brown, it's either on, the heat is on it too long, or your heat gun is too close. So I wanted to do multiple things because this is a new heat gun for me. And this one is, I had it too close. And I just learning where that distance is because it's new. So I know I'm going to have to have some trial and error, but having it too close, it's going to burn your paper. So keep that in mind. If it starts turning brown, now you won't see the brown on the black so much, but what you will see, did I keep that one? What you will see, I don't think that I have it here, is that your embossing powder will start to turn, like it will go, this would go to this nice gold, shiny embossed. And if I kept heating it, it would start to change color and the gold itself would start to look burned. So even though I might not see the burn on the paper, I'm going to see it in the gold and it's suddenly not going to be pretty anymore. Keep the heat gun moving. Yes, Julie. You might have seen that I did that even when at the end, when there was just two little spots, I kept going back and forth from one little spot to the other. I don't want to stay in the same place because that heat can get too intense and burn it before it has a chance to melt it. And part of that then tells you need to back away and be a little farther away from it. But sometimes you only have a very small image and you can go back and forth over it. So you're even going off of it or go around in a circle. So you don't have the same intensity of heat at all times on all places. Let's see here. No mistakes, just opportunities for a different idea. That's true. My happiness is happy now. Yeah, Julie, on purpose, just to show us. I'm sure, Marianne. No, Julie, all my mistakes are not on purpose to show you, but I do try to keep them to maybe save you from making some of the mistakes I've had. Yes, that's exactly it, Margie. Over embossed powder goes dull. You get this beautiful, shiny, it looks like metallic happiness. And if you keep embossing it, it's going to go dull again. And you might think, oh, I haven't done it enough. I need to keep doing it until it gets shiny. It's not going to. It's once you go shiny and then goes dull, you've done it. You've overdone it. Hi, Yolanda. Hello, Miss Kristen. Okay, so that is a basic. Let me get back to here to all three and see what these gals were doing. Okay, so Candy is, she has stamped a bunch of things on there and she is heating heating all of them. You can see imagination, dream, believe, journey, and she's doing some frames. Those frames are cool. She can cut those out and use those. Okay, Debbie's got vision. I like that. I like the vision. And oh, look at those A's. Those are cool. Did you use 3 different colors of embossing powder, Debbie?
I did. I used all clear. There's 4. There's one right here too that's white.
Oh, I see it now. Oh wow, white on white.
Right. So it's clear embossing, the clear pad. Okay. And I use gold and black and white and the silver.
Nice. So you can see doing the same thing in 4 different ways. That's a good way to try it out and see what exactly you're going to get from it. You know, to see what you want, what you like.
Where's that A? So, I don't know if you can see it or not, but there's writing.
Oh yeah.
So of course, when you emboss, it won't show up.
It will cover that up for the most part.
Right.
Yeah.
It's a pretty stamp.
It is a pretty stamp.
It's old.
Right. And this is what happens when you stick your finger in it, ladies.
Candy just stuck her finger in it on purpose.
No.
To show you what happened.
Before I heated it up, when I was doing the stamp, I stuck my finger in there and messed it all up.
That's why I hate to take a brush to it, because
this is
brush
that
it right
glaze. It goes clear, so
okay.
Even though I put it on pink, it's clear.
We're gonna do glaze at the end because I don't want to confuse between the glaze and
that's why it's clear. If they want
powder,
they're probably thinking it was pink when I put it on there.
Okay, so what I used here was a fine embossing powder. Did you guys? Yours was a pretty fine one, Debbie.
My black one is detail black.
Okay, so that's super fine.
Right.
That last one, the one that I see right on the left, that looks like it may have been a little bit chunkier, but
this one?
Yeah, it's not a chunky, but maybe a fine.
It's just normal embossing powder.
Okay, so it's a regular.
Yeah, so I keep.
Okay.
I had mass amounts, so mine are in tubs.
Okay, I'm going to make you large because that's a good thing. If you find that you like to emboss a lot of things in black or white or clear, and we're going to talk about clear in a minute, having a tub like that where you can just hold your item over the tub and spoon it onto your item, falls right back in the tub, is a great idea, because then you don't even have to deal with putting it into the coffee filter or the paper or the tray and getting it back in there. If you do a lot of things in specific colors. Now, I know Debbie's got like 300 small containers like that of embossing powder and flock, which we're probably not going to get to today. But she does have the large containers of the ones that she would use the most often. Margie does that too. Hi, Reba. Yeah, Debbie has the best stamp collection. She does. Debbie's been doing this for a long time, and she's taught classes over the years in a lot of different things. So she does have a great collection of a lot of tools. The metal will obviously get extremely hot. So, thank you, Reba. That's a really good point. So when your heat tool is going to get really hot, let me go back here. As you're heating this, your heat tool is going to get very hot. Mine has a metal end. So specifically, that metal is going to get very hot. So you want to be very careful with what you set this on. After I do this, what am I setting it on? Do I have a hook that I can hang it on? Do I have a silicone mat next to me that I can set it on the silicone mat? See, Debbie's is metal as well. You want to be very aware of that, because you can start a fire or melt some things you did not want to melt. by setting it somewhere that you didn't realize where you just set it down.
I always think that when you're done with your projects for your day, just unplug the heat gun.
Yes.
Just unplug it.
Here's 4 different stamps of 4 pairs of glasses. They're done in rose gold. It's a fine because they're really small little glasses. But again, look at the paper around it. I didn't use a powder tool. When I was doing these, I didn't have my powder tool with me, and I can't walk downstairs to get it. So I had to wait till Doug could go down and get it for me. So I was doing them without the powder tool, and I got little bitty bits of stuff all over. That's a cool one, Debbie. Like that a lot.
I did use the powder tool on this, and this might just be, the lines might be too close and a little bit too fine on this particular stamp.
But it kind of looks like all the pollen got blown off of it, and the pollen's in the air. So that kind of looks cool.
Right. But then, do you want to see the mandala?
Yes.
Okay, so here is using fine powder, detail powder for this. And here's another thing about your stamps. This one did not
stamp in the center.
I mean, that's good because I can cover this with many
other. If you're going to use it as a background, it's okay.
Right. So big stamps, I think, make sure you have good coverage, and make sure on the big ones, I tend to stand up
and pressure
and then rub my hand over the top of it. But I did it twice, and this one still didn't. So, a nice yellow moon here with chalks, or fill this all in with chalks, and it won't smear because you've embossed it.
Yeah, if you know you're going to use it as a background, then it's okay. But yeah, be aware of that. Even a little more so than ink, because something has to stick to it. if it is a larger image, you want to make sure that you get pressure on the entire thing in order to.
Yeah, I did this one 4 times before I got the
Okay, that's good to show because you can see tips missing on some and
tip is missing. This
Okay.
one, I rocked the stamp,
oh, okay.
so that's why that double there. This one I didn't get all.
Okay.
And then
Now-
I did like you did. I did a burn just to show
But-
it a burn.
Yeah, but that's not a loss because that stamp Debbie's showing you is one that you can stamp multiples of, and you could emboss all of them in different colors or color them in with inks or alcohol ink markers or pencils, and then you can cut them out where those lines are, and then you can layer them to make a dimensional. So where her tips are missing, she could cut those out and use the inner layers. Does that make sense, guys? So always look at it as what can I do with it? Not just a loss that I throw away. I think it was Dawn that said, it's never a waste. It's just an opportunity to, number 2, release your creativity and think of something new to do with it. Julie did say that her heat tool has a little stand to stand it on. And that's a good thing. If you have that, use that. Just make sure that the end isn't touching anything that is going to melt.
I think mine did
have a stand at one time.
Yeah,
I had one like that, and my stand came off at some point as well.
yeah, we're like 10, 12 years old.
Do you Candy and Debbie, do you guys have a pen, an embossing pen?
I do.
Let's do the embossing pen for a second.
Yeah, that's what I wrote my words with.
So Candy was ahead of us. She already did her words. Here's
I don't have any stamp words.
Oh, well, that's
you
okay.
Don't?
No, I don't. Not really. I have like Merry Christmas, but it's really tiny.
Well, we need to get Candy some stamp words.
I have some tiny ones, but nothing big. That would.
Here is some samples. I'm going to go big for just a second here. These are ones that I quickly wrote out with the pen, and I just hand wrote the word art. And the first one is embossed with a puffy embossing powder. The second one is a holographic powder. And the third one is a regular white. You get a really nice, crisp white. It's like paint. Looks really cool. So if you have an image that you would like white, a snowflake or something on a black background, very cool in a white. But all you have to do is take your pen, your marker pen, your embossing ink pen. What are we going to write? Somebody give me a word.
I just wrote happy on mine.
Oh, I've been doing happiness all over the place.
Okay.
What? Believe?
Believe.
Dream. Okay. Well, I'm going to try to remember to use my powder tool first here.
I didn't.
Because I just about started writing and didn't use my powder tool. I will tell you of the whole process. That's the hardest part for me, is just remembering to use my powder tool. Okay.
I didn't, and here is the
Oops, let me go back here.
That's okay.
Nope, there we go. Okay, you did not use your powder tool?
I did not use my powder tool, so here's right here from my fingerprints and here. And this did not, but it's an old pen, so that could be too. I'll redo here. Do the fat end. Oh, this fat end's like a brush. Oh,
you've got a double-ended pen?
Yeah, it's
mine are single. That's awesome.
Versamark.
Okay. What do I want? I want to do a silver on this one. Let's see here. Versamark. I think I don't have a Versamark. These other 3 brands I have, none of them are double-ended. That's pretty cool. Okay. So I did gold. I'm going to do a fine silver on this one.
So there's the brush end, what I did with it. I just swirled
just
it
on it. Cool. Oh,
yeah.
wow. So that would be cool for doing like a cloud or grass or something where you want, you know, a
Do you
little
want
bit.
to see that page I did?
Yeah.
Now, I put I used the refill bottle and put it out on my glass mat and added some water to it and then just brushed on and
Okay, there's my silver.
then added the colors.
Oh, that's gorgeous. Look at that, guys. Hang on. Hang on, hang on. Look at that. All embossed, different colors. Tilt it a little bit
That's
so
really
we're
pretty.
seeing the shine as you tilt it
It's
just a tiny.
pretty.
Yeah, look at that. Oh, that is so pretty. The copper and the gold and the blue, that green. It looks very patina and rust. I love it.
And this black was chunky, so that's why these spots.
Uh-huh.
In fact, I think it's one called Cloisonne,
Yes. Oh,
which
cool.
is really, really chunky.
I agree, Mark. I love the colors. Word is a word. I could have done. Okay.
With that.
That's funny. Okay, so I'm going to quick heat this one. So you see my believe, it doesn't look very much like anything. It's just flat, but it's silver. So watch it come out. And I realize that you can't see my gun to see that I'm keeping it moving. I'll try to get it in camera. You go along, and it feels like nothing is happening, but it's heating from underneath. And you'll think nothing's happening. And then in about 3 seconds, the whole thing will turn just like all at once. And you're like, oh, wow. There we go. Yeah, so nothing happens for a while, and then all of a sudden it turns. And I got a little smear of my pen right there. So there's believe. Believe. You could actually write a whole letter. You could write a ransom note and emboss it. Oh,
make
fun.
sure you use the embossing buddy so your fingerprints aren't on the paper.
Really? There you go. Or afterwards. That's funny. Okay, so how about Debbie and Candy? Do you guys have any die cuts sitting around to emboss?
I did them.
You already did them. Okay.
Yep. This one I just did before we went live.
Oh, cool. Amazing.
Here's a deer. Oops. Oops, that doesn't show very well there.
I just found these are actually these are chipboard.
This one was with the cloisonne.
I'm going to. Oh, that's pretty. Look at that Eiffel Tower with cloisonne. That is really pretty.
This one was a glitter.
Oh, that's pretty.
I don't know if you can't see the glitter.
Yeah, as you turn it at an angle, we can see the glittery. Yeah, that's really pretty.
This one I put Tim Holtz dye inks down first, and then embossed all in clear.
Oh wow.
This one I embossed in clear. This one was a burgundy color. Whoops, you can't see that. A burgundy color.
Ooh. And so you did it clear? I thought that was the color of the embossing powder. That's really pretty.
Well, I used clear in embossing ink.
Yeah.
And then put down, and here's one in with a kind of a pink.
Oh, that's pretty. Look how fine those are, guys. Look how very thin, fine words those are that she's just cut out of her Cricut or die cut with dies on her regular die cut machine. Okay, let's see.
Reba, you too can do this when you're here.
Yeah, you can use Debbie's supplies. Okay, I've got in here some, it's a mixture of gold and purple that I had for a project, and this is what was left over. So I'm going to use this gold and purple on this dream. And this is a big word, and it's chipboard, and so I might have to do some of it more than once. I realize that, so we'll see how this goes. But I'm going to I tried to coat it well with the the ink. We'll see if I got it well enough. Now, here's another tip. When you're doing words, don't hold them with your hands. Please don't hold them with your hands.
Oh, yeah.
That's where these tweezers that you squeeze in to get a hold of something and then let go and it holds it. That's where they come in super, super handy. Okay. I'm going to get that from underneath. Okay. Now I can hold it like this. These little things are silicone, so your hands won't burn if it gets hot. But I don't even like my fingers that close because it hurts. So I'm going to hold them clear back here, and I'm going to heat up there. Let's see. What did Tina say? Love the Eiffel Tower. Reba says yes. Deer, a doe, a female deer. Ray, a spot of gold. Doe, a deer. Doe, a deer. Deer, a doe.
When you do words, I saw somebody do where they what did I just do with my right here, where they put their tool down in the hole of the word.
Their tool down in the hole of the word.
See, like this loop right here.
Uh-huh.
And so then that way you're not missing any of the words.
If you want to hold it down. Yeah.
Right. I mean, you don't want to do it on paper, of course, but for fake.
You can do that too, yeah.
Like that.
My problem is that it ends up flying around and around and around.
Yep, it did.
He moves it. So this way I can at least hold it exactly where I need it or want it. Okay, I don't know if you can see. Watch it start to change colors. I hope it... it's a mixture of purple and gold. Whatever the project was that I did, it turned out really cool. Let's see if it's not as shiny as a regular gold because it's got the purple in it.
Margie, do you emboss a lot? Heat emboss a lot?
Okay, I got to quick show you this before it goes away. I was doing it and I couldn't tell if this was completely done right here. And I went over there's just a little too long and the bottom of the D started to bubble. I saw it as soon as it started to bubble, and so I stopped, and so it went down. But that means I did it just a little too long because if I kept doing it, it would just keep bubbling. And then instead of having a nice, smooth, I got a little spot right here that hasn't turned. So let me give that a little bit of heat. There's a fine line between getting it perfectly embossed and going just a bit too long. Okay, so that is a chipboard die cut that you could turn any color you wanted. So we just made that gold and purple mixture. I won't do these, but I pulled out some wings, angel wings that you could upside down, right side up, who knows, that you could do. Those would be really pretty in white, put on something. Okay, so let's talk about the clear for a second. Debbie did some things clear, and you might think, why do I want clear? What would I do with clear embossing powder? Clear is wonderful. If you pull up something that is already a color that you like, you just want to give it that look of having put, oh, what is the stuff? What is the stuff in the white bottle with the pink on it that I always forget the name?
Glossy Accents.
Thank you. If you want it to look like you put glossy accents on it, but you don't want it to cost like using a half a bottle of glossy accents on it, because that stuff's expensive, it's a whole lot cheaper to do clear embossing powder. So I can take this. I'm going to use this. Let's see, where am I going to grab it? I might have to move it after I'm done and do just that spot. But I can take this butterfly. Sorry, I'm trying to stay in frame with this arm. Take this butterfly that's already a very pretty yellow, and I can coat it with embossing ink. In fact, I'll just do that. Try to make sure I get ink all over. I'm not even going to put him. You could put him on an acrylic block, and usually I would, But because he's large enough, I'm just sticking him right on the ink pad. I got to make sure his little antenna get ink too. If I don't push them down, they're not going to. They'll just sit there. Remember, it has to be enough ink that something can stick to it. Okay, and then I'm going to pick that up right there in the center. And I'm going to, here's a clear. Here is a Nouveau clear. Grab that. So right now he just looks wet. But I wanted to make sure I had plenty of embossing ink on him. Debbie, you already did some clear. Do you have anything else you could do clear right now?
Right now, yeah.
Yeah. Candy, do you have something you could do clear?
Yeah.
Oh, you're already in the middle of it. Okay. Okay, so I'm going to cover him, coat him very well. You don't want to touch him. You don't want to touch him and move the powder around with your fingers. Instead of doing that, just put way more powder than you think you need, because you want every tiny little bit to be covered. And you can shake him around and get that powder going everywhere. Just make sure that the whole thing is covered. Okay. All right. So there is my butterfly. Let me move that. If I leave that tray underneath me, my heat gun is going to blow that powder everywhere. How do you tell a boy butterfly from a girl butterfly? I don't know, Margie. How do you tell boy butterfly from a girl butterfly?
The one that's smarter is the girl. Oh, did I say that? I'm sorry. I thought I was muted.
That was good. Good answer, Candy. Good answer. Oh, that was awesome. Okay, now I don't know if you could see it as it was happening, but he looked wet, and then when I put the embossing powder on him, he just looked dusty. And then he goes back to looking very clear and shiny, as if he has a coat of what is it? Why can't I ever
Glossy accents.
Glossy accents on him, and it's completely dried. I don't have to wait for it to dry, and I don't have to pay for a whole bunch of glossy accents. Debbie has a stamp. We mass made stamps the other night. Candy's doing a fleur-de-lis. One of the things that I really love to do with little images like these three is do them with clear and then punch a hole in them and add them to a dangle on a book spine, or turn them into a charm.
Can I show you what I did?
Yes. I was just going to ask you. So Debbie did a large stamp and clear embossed it. And then she attached a stamp up on the top that is also clear embossed with a paper clip, so it could clip onto a journal page. And then on the bottom corner, she put a hole and an eyelet and put a bulb pin with another stamp and a couple of words. And so she turned it all into a charm, a dangle, a bookmark, a paper clip, all those things in one. Isn't that amazing?
So this stamp and this stamp and this stamp I made from total scratch. So I had the outline stamp, and then I filled it in with words or little stamps that I had to do that.
Nice.
And then
that's a huge tip. Guys, that's a huge, huge tip. Even if you want to do, like Glennis and I were making stamps the other night, and we were, finding images and cutting them out. If you want to make your own, you've got stamps that you like that little tiny butterfly or little tiny words, and you think they would make cute stamps. Debbie just showed you how. You just stamp it down, stamp the ring around it. You could even take if you don't have that, you could even take a little ruler and your ink pen, and you could make that border, and then you could stamp your word or your clock or your butterfly inside it, and then emboss. Well, if you did that in black, because you embossed in clear, correct? Or did you emboss in black? If you did that butterfly,
I stamped everything
Like the butterfly. Did you stamp the butterfly and its border in black?
Yes.
Okay.
And then I used distress inks to, you know, make my colors.
Oh,
And
perfect.
then I covered, that's my favorite thing to do, is seal them so they look like a little tile.
Yes, exactly. Me too. I love that.
Here's another one. See, the bee
I
doesn't
love the
exactly
bee.
fit in there, but it's okay that it doesn't
You know,
fit
it's
in here.
perfect. Yeah, it doesn't need
It's
to.
okay that it's not exactly even.
That's okay.
Yeah,
That's
so I have
totally okay. Yeah, so you can make your own. You can cut out a tiny image and do it, or you can make your own if you have images that you like. That would be perfect. In fact, if you want to customize something for a journal, just like we were talking about, where you take the fussy cut sheet and you cut something to make a faux stamp for that journal, you can also take something from the fussy cut sheet and emboss it to make a charm. Or I mean, I love how Debbie did a charm, a dangle, a bookmark, a paper clip, all in one.
Tina,
Glenna, can you get that bought, please?
What I did. All of these are double clear.
Yes.
So I heat it, and then I put the embossing ink back on it again, and then dip it again.
Yep.
So they're a little bit thicker. This one,
you can see how nice and thick they are as she's holding them. So she just let them dry and then completely covered them again with embossing ink, dipped them again in the embossing powder, and they become solid. They will last as charms for sure.
And then this one, I gave it just a little bit of texture because I cut the letters out. I stamped it again and cut the letters out and put it on them. So
I love that. I love the little distress around the edges. They're not all perfect, you know, like they were. There's a ransom note cut out of the newspaper. Cute. Kathy's asking, did you emboss both sides, Debbie?
No, I did not.
And that's optional. You can or you cannot. It's totally up to you. If you wanted to emboss the back so the entire thing is clear, just emboss it with clear so it'll stay white, but it'll have that same coating on it. But you don't have to. That would be even a cool thing to, on the back, stamp, you know, created by and her name on, if she was, you know, giving that to somebody or putting it into a book that she's giving away or something like that. But yeah, that's completely up to you. If that base is not white, but it's a color, then maybe you want to do the back so that it's a nice, shiny, clear as well. But yeah, totally personal preference on that. I think that's what's cool over just using glossy accents. I agree, Tina. And you don't have to wait for it to dry. I mean, literally within a couple of seconds, it's dry. As soon as you take your heat gun off, you only need a couple seconds and it's dry. Where the glossy accents, when you're doing something this large, look how much she would have used doing all those pieces in glossy accents and then having to let it sit overnight before she could even put it together. So yeah, that's a lot. So Candy is taking the Tim Holtz people and just covering them with embossing ink, and then covering them with clear embossing powder. And you can turn those into charms or people that are not going to get torn up, which is a pretty cool way to preserve them, you know, using them in different projects. And they just look kind of dusty. And then you put the heat to them and all of a sudden, boom, away they go. Okay, so we are at 1:22. We have a half an hour, a little more than half an hour left. So let's talk about a couple more things because we've got some tips for you, some tricks, and a couple of secrets that you might not have thought about. When you're choosing a stamp, you want to choose something fairly simple. The more detailed the stamp, the more difficulty you will have in getting a clear image. When you're using your embossing pen, some of them have different nibs, I have noticed. In fact, let me grab these and show you the difference in these three. If I can get that off, I have no strength over there. Ouch. Okay, so look at the difference in these three nibs. If they'll focus. Maybe they will, maybe they won't. There's still so much shiny down there. But go ahead.
There's the one I have that's a brush.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, see, that's like a chisel end. And the right one on this one is the pointiest. The center one is fairly pointy. The left one is a little bit thicker. So depending what you want to write with it or how fine the detail you want there might determine which one you use as you're writing. So another thing that you can do with those is take a, that's probably a good one. You could take a card that, you know, you've maybe cut out of, you know, out of the, say you're working, you have a stamp period paper pack and you take the card, like this one. Did I get the right lid on? There we go. This is from Passion. And here's a card, a journal card all ready to go. And it has the word art on it. Maybe I just want to highlight the word art. I can take my pen and I can go here and let's see how I do this quickly, because sometimes when I hurry, I make a mess of it. But if I follow the word as they have it scripted, I don't have to figure out how to write the word. They've already written it. If I don't ruin the font that they already have on it, I'm just going to go over it. And I'm going over each little section a couple of times to make sure it's got plenty of embossing ink on it. Because again, I need the powder to stick. Okay, and then let's see, do I have some pink? Oh, I do. I have that hot pink that I have. Did I just touch that? Don't know. Hopefully it's not drying too fast. Let's get this hot pink right here. Need another tray. See why I need multiple trays, especially with a gimpy arm. Okay, and I'm going to do hot pink over this word art. That might be a little bit bright, but I can always do something over the top and even tone that down. Woo, that's hot pink. That's not just pink. That's hot pink. What did I forget to do? Same thing I always forget to do.
Use your embossing buddy.
Yep, I forgot my powder tool. And look at that. As I'm trying to go around the edge, I went over the word a little bit and pushed some of the powder away. So I may have to do this a second time because I might have pushed off some of the ink in that by doing that with the brush. So yeah, Glynis, let me go full screen here for a quick second. And I'm sorry, I'm trying to stay on screen. This is the first day I've actually been able to use my left hand a little bit, but it has to stay tight into my body. Actually, it's strapped into my body, so I can't move it out very far. So I keep twisting and turning, trying to get it just so I can hold something like this. And let's see what we can do with this hot pink art. You forgot to use 4 question marks, Glynis. Shouldn't use any question mark. Messy Palette, Australia. Good morning. Oh goodness, Messy Palette. I'm trying to remember your name. I know your name. I know you from over on PM, but I can't think of it right this moment. But a lot of people probably haven't met you yet. So if you could tell everybody your name, your first name, Messy Palette. Hi, Tammy. Okay, I'm going to turn this a little bit. Well, that's not too bright. That's working. Okay. Diane, thank you. Glynis, question marks. If you have a question, if you'll put 4 question marks and then the question, then it jumps out at me and I can see it. Okay, so there, all I did was emboss just the word art on there by using the embossing pen, not the whole. I can handle more than 4. Just by using the pen to write it instead of the ink pad, because I'd have got ink all over. Same thing on here like this. You could just go over the word love and then put black on it and just make that word love a nice embossed word as well. So let me show you a couple of things. I want to make sure we don't run out of time before we're we get through all the things we wanted to get through today. I'm going to go back here to share screen. There are other things that we like to emboss on. One of the things that I like to emboss on is leather. A lot of you got a bag of leather scraps from one of our sales a few months ago. If you got leather scraps, let's see what I missed from Tina. Those blings are us sharing photos of our things to Marianne. Yeah, I'm going to pull those up and show you what these guys are sending me. Some pretty amazing things that they have embossed. If you got a bag of those leather scraps, these emboss really nicely. I'm going to do one right here in silver or white because it shows up great. But I want to show you two things not to do. A little bit shabby, Jubri. Oh, hi, welcome. I think this is your first time with us. But sounds like it's somebody that Glynis knows. Can you share your first name with us so the rest of us can meet you? Happy to have you here. Okay, so here is a piece. I guess I need to do this again for just a moment. Here's a piece of leather. Remember when I told you that back at the beginning, we talked about the texture of the embossing powder, that it could be everywhere from chunky. Sometimes it's called glitter or chunky or large, or different types of things that let you know that it's a larger granule than a fine or a super fine or a regular. This is one that I believe this was a wow, and it was called, it's like this one, but it was silver, and it's called Embossing Glitter. So it's a much larger texture. And when I put it on here, because this is a fairly small word, you can tell that the word is inspire, but because it's a small word and a large granule of embossing powder, as it melts, it kind of becomes blob-like. So it's not a very clean word. And so that's an example of what you'll get if you use too large of a granule on too small of an image. And that's what's to keep in mind. Judy, that is Judy. Hi, Judy. Glad to have you here, Dagnabbit. Do you have to use question marks if it's not a question? No, Tina, I just, if you have a question, if you put 4 question marks and then the question, it will jump out to me. And if the question is in all caps, it's even better. That way I can make sure I don't miss a question, because I can mark it. And so at the end, I can look at all the questions and make sure that we've covered them all. On the other end here is another not to do. This is the same word, inspire. I stamped it on. I used a holographic embossing powder, and I did not get a good coverage because my stamp did not go down fully. So it was kind of haphazard. So I wanted to stamp it again. Well, I didn't put it in the Stamping Buddy. I just used the stamp by hand. And so I tried to go over the exact same spot, but it was not, this is not one of those, close is good enough, like horseshoes and hand grenades. You have to be dead on. And so it was just a slight bit off. And so all of a sudden the word becomes all blurry because it has a shadow next to it. The other thing, so once I saw I had done that, then I went ahead and put embossing powder on it, and then I kept heating it. Can you see right above where my thumb is, how it's not very shiny? It's kind of matte because I kept heating it and I overheated it, and that's a burn. So I wouldn't see the burn on the leather because the leather is dark, but I can see the burn on the embossing powder because the embossing powder goes shiny, and then it keeps going and it goes kind of matte, kind of dull, as Margie said. Yeah, so I know that I burned that. So those are some good samples of not to do, or how not to do it. So let's go back here and see what these guys are embossing on. That cloisonne is really pretty. Is that a die cut?
No, that's this is chunky, really chunky.
Oh,
so that's what I did.
Okay.
The Eiffel Tower in,
which is fine because it's
you can probably see right here how chunky it is.
Yeah, it's a large image, and it's okay when you got chunky pieces of plastic and they melt, they're going to be a little more bubbly and puffy, and that's okay because it makes the Eiffel Tower a little more 3D. So perfect. But on something fine or detailed, you're probably not going to want a great big chunky powder like that. That's pretty.
Okay, so this one was, this is against all the grain here. This one was a Tim Holtz Distress ink pad. So you have to be really, really fast because it'll dry.
Dries fast.
And then clear embossing powder.
Cool. That's pretty. Okay, Candy's got I'm a
Look
Tim
at
Holtz
those,
person,
look at those frames.
but she's also got some metal frames in front of her. So take a look at her metal frames. Candy, you want to hold those up to the camera?
Yeah. Okay, so this one was done with just the embossing ink.
Okay.
And some
clear?
salvage patina clear embossing glaze.
Oh, cool.
Pretty.
So this one was done with the salvage patina ink and the oxide and the
embossing. Okay, so they
See
both
the difference in
touched
the
on
color?
something.
Yeah.
Embossing glaze.
Yeah.
The glaze.
Yeah.
So
or the
both of
powder.
them use the embossing glaze.
Yes.
This
Then
one
you
just
wanna use
used
the ink.
ink, the plain Versamark
Okay.
ink, and this used the Distress Oxide
The-
salvage patina ink.
They both touched on something that I want to bring up. You do not actually have to have embossing ink to emboss. You can use, well, really, you can use anything.
And then this one was
You
the
could
metal.
emboss. You could emboss with water.
What was
Not
that one, Candy?
This was a silver. It's a silver washer.
Uh-huh.
So I inked it with Stays On turquoise,
Oh, wow.
That's really pretty.
and then used rusty hinge glaze. And up close, you can see little. It looks textured
That
and rusty.
Oh, that's cool. Let's see, where did that little guy go? Okay, so they both touched on something. I'm still not gonna hit the glaze quite yet until we're done with the powder because I don't want to confuse somebody. But then what Candy's doing, you're gonna see it'll all make sense. Oh, that's a glaze too, so we'll wait on that one. But they both touched on something that they did on theirs. They did not use the embossing ink to do it. They used a Distress Oxide. Is that cat?
That's Candy's baby, isn't it?
Oh,
No, that's a cat. That's one of my cats.
Oh, Mama Cat?
One of
oh,
them. I can't tell you which one. The door's closed. I can't see.
oh, they're trying to get in.
Yeah, well, I'm sure they're probably running from the baby. He is fascinated with the cats because they don't have cats.
Oh, that's hilarious.
So he's
Oh,
chasing
Charlie.
them.
So he runs around chasing them.
Yeah, and then the kitten just kind of runs from him because he's a little rough. He's a little rough with them.
Yeah. Well, that's
KK, the older cat, I've had to yell at her because she'll try to pop him. She tries to. It's a good thing she doesn't have. It's a good thing she doesn't have claws. She doesn't have claws on her front paws, so that's probably a good thing because she got him.
That's funny.
And it scared him.
Yeah.
I had to yell at her, but he sees him and he just squeals and chases him.
Oh, that's got to be the cutest. I hope you've recorded that.
No, I haven't because.
So I'm using embossing ink on this because I want to show you on the leather. But what they both touched on was that they embossed something that they did not use embossing ink on. And you can literally emboss with anything. You can emboss with water, although it's not the fastest because water takes longer to dry than anything. But they both used Distress Oxide. Distress Oxide is a great base for embossing. That doesn't even feel like it got anything on there. I don't know. Well, guess we'll find out. Yeah, Distress Oxide is a great base. But the faster something dries, the faster you have to work, in putting your stuff on and heating it up. If you do use water, oh, look at that. I could hardly see it, but it is on there. Should have put it in the Misty because I did not get a good stamp. So I did not get enough ink on there. And I forgot to use my powder tool again. What is it with me and powder tools?
It looks distressed. It'll look distressed though when you.
That's true. That's true. Okay, let's see. We'll do this. So they used the Distress Oxide as their ink, and then used, and you can match with the Distress Oxide embossing powder over the top of it, or any other embossing powder. If you use Distress Oxide ink in a color, then you could do clear. That's getting hot. Then you could do clear embossing powder over it. But that whole point is that you don't even have to have embossing powder, that you can use other things. Pigment inks work great. Any pigment ink that you have. Okay, so in the right situation, that could be just fine as it is, because it does look distressed. But look at all this crap out here because I forgot to use my powder tool. I just have a thing about powder tools. I was going to fill it in, but I don't think I will. I think I'll leave it, and I will use it in a distressed situation because I kind of like it. It kind of looks worn. Okay, so that is on leather. Leather works great. I made Doug a really cool keychain and embossed a sentiment on it for our anniversary. This is Embossing Dabber. You can use this to put ink on something to get it in a small area in a specific place so that you don't have to use the whole ink pad. That might have been easier on the Word, daubing this on the Word so I could get deep into the sponge and get enough on the Word to use. How about the Substrate? Substrate is the thing that you are working on. So leather was my substrate here. We've been working on paper. That's been our substrate for the most part. What else can you emboss on, Debbie?
What else can you emboss on?
Look at that flower Candy's doing. It is gorgeous.
Candy did it on metal, and I've done on metal before. You can emboss on vellum, but you have to be very, very careful. Two things. One, vellum will burn easy, and it will
I'm gonna mute for just a second.
It'll get all wavy. Let's see, what else have I embossed on? Yesterday I was stuck on paper, so that's what I played with yesterday, but metal's a good one. What else?
Metal, vellum. If we had time, fabric. Yes.
I haven't done the fabric yet.
So there's a couple of tricks with the fabric. You want to look at the fabric and see if it's super porous. If it's super porous, then you want to coat it. I did coat this one this morning just with a layer of a clear gesso. A clear gesso will keep the ink from soaking in. And then, of course, I picked it up. I stuck my finger in it 3 times and stuck the fabric to itself. That's why I already had stuff all over my hands before we started. But if you stamp with the embossing ink directly on the fabric is going to absorb it. But I'm going to get right to Tina's in just a second here. Of course, Margie was trying to tell me, don't forget to use the powder, buddy. And I did, because I didn't even look over there to see it. This room will be called What Not to Do. Thanks, Margie. No, it's just what Marianne will show what not to do. Debbie and Candy will show what to do. She was trying to show me or tell me not to forget to use the powder, buddy. And I did. Buttons, playing cards, lace. Yes, they all work great. So if your substrate is super porous, like this fabric, and it would absorb the ink, when I stamp it, the ink goes in it so quickly that it doesn't matter if I have the embossing powder right away to put on it. The ink underneath the powder is still just being absorbed, and it just doesn't work. You would have to do it over and over and over and over again. And so if you just cover it with a coat of any clear gel medium or clear gesso, any of those, then it is suddenly ready to be embossed. So then you can stamp right on here, whatever the image is, do exactly the same thing. Pour your embossing powder on it and heat it up. If we have time, I will do that because I've got that already prepped, ready to go. Yeah, Glennis had some good ideas. Yeah, Margie, knew that would happen. Buttons, playing cards, lace. Yes, those are great. Buttons. I've got some buttons that are great sizes. They're really ugly colors. They're not old. They're new buttons, and they're just cheap plastic, and they don't look cool at all. But I could paint them with whatever distress ink I wanted to, and then clear emboss them. They would look really, really cool, and that's going to seal them in. Let's see. Tina, you missed saying, whoops, just flipped. You missed saying you need to hold it up, not lay it down. It gets hotter sooner. Oh, you mean hold it up in the air when you're heating it up? What I didn't, because I thought that leather was big enough, I didn't put my tweezer on it. And I should have put my tweezer on it because it wasn't big enough. My hands were getting hot. That's why I set it down. But she's right. If I had the tweezer on it, I could have held it up. It would have worked a lot better. You can decant an embossing refilled into a fine tip glue bottle to do fine work too, like filigree. Oh, that's a cool idea. Embossing ink stays wet for a long time, so you're not so pressed for time. So I have also found that it depends on the ink that you use. Embossing ink, as Tina said, is going to stay wet for a lot longer than regular ink is. A pigment ink is going to stay wet longer than, say, a distress ink. In fact, let me see. What have I got right here? What have I got right here? How about, let's see if we can get Lady Vagabond's books on this piece of fabric. Maybe we can do that. Because I do have a pigment ink right here. This is just one of those little mementos. Brilliance, pearlescent olive. Interesting color. It happens to be sitting right here. So I'm going to, what do I want to, what color do I want to emboss with? Let me decide that. I think maybe multi. Let's get some gold. And this one is copper blush. I should have all these ready to go. Okay. This is a purple. We could even get a little bit of red. Now, if you want to be adventurous, you can do these all into the same container and end up with all the leftover in the same container mixed and see what you get. Okay, so I'm going to ink this stamp up here with this memento. Let's see. I can't hold it with that hand very well. I know that's kind of noisy, and I apologize, but that hand doesn't have strength to hold it up and do it in the air. So that's fairly juicy. Not like wet, but fairly juicy. That's the side that I did clear on. Okay. And now I know I'm going to have to, I can't, no pressure with the left hand. Can't push, can't pull, can't get any pressure. I'm going to have to make sure that I get good pressure on the entire stamp, because if the image doesn't go down somewhere, it's not going to hold embossing powder. Of course, I can always, if I put this in a Misty, it would be in the same place, and I could go back and do it again. And I can also cover a little area with the embossing pen. but I'd like to try to get it all with this ink if I could. Okay. So there's Lady Vagabond's books. Let's see. I'm going to be adventurous here. We're going to do a little bit in blue. Ooh, that's pretty. We're going to do some in red. Woo, that's a lot of red. We're going to do a little bit in gold. And we're going to do some in copper. And I'm going to let all the overage. Oh, what didn't I do again? Margie's screaming at me. I know she is. I know she's screaming at me. Screaming at me because I did not use the powder tool again.
Well, that was a big old chunk that came out of there.
Ooh. Okay, I don't want to get too close to that. Okay, so here is the, and you could take time to really like let these blend one to the other really well. But, cover up my ink. I'm going to hold this down here with that and see if I can do it on the table. Margie gave up on me. Debbie, Julie loves what you're doing there. Margie, don't give up on me, please. Okay, here we go. There's a couple more things I want to get to really quickly before we end, so hoping this turns quickly. We'll just keep it moving. I tend to want to get too close because I know I'm in a hurry, and so I want it to get hot fast. But if I get too close, it burns before it has a chance to fully melt. So I need to give it enough distance that the heat can build up and it can turn without burning. Okay, I see some of them starting to turn. Whoops. Not high. I don't want high. I see some of them starting to turn. Just keep it moving. Keep it moving. Oh, okay. I'm actually going to have to pick it up so that I can look at it and see. Okay, I couldn't see at that angle if it was all done, but there's some red that is not melted. That's really cool. Really cool. Okay. You do you. Okay, so here is our shelf of Lady Vagabond books. Copper, gold, red, and blue. Those are really pretty. So now, once this cools, you could come back in with colored pencils and just give it a light shading in between if you wanted. Or you could get a little bit of distress color, like a vintage photo, just on a brush and put it in there. Or you could do it with alcohol markers or anything. I wouldn't want to do alcohol markers because I like this being an accent, but I might choose to use some colored pencils just to get a little shading so it's not so bright, such a bright difference. Does that make sense? Hi, honey.
Hello.
How are you?
Good. Oh, close your eyes. Open your mouth.
Oh, my goodness. We're done in 7 minutes. Fill my mouth up so I can't talk. Way to go.
Right.
Use your powder tool, Diane. Diane says, the journal I'm making at the moment has heaps of embossing, so this is excellent ideas. Oh, good. Diane, when you get it done, or even as you have progress things, take pictures and put them in Happy Paper People. We would love to see them. Ideas of how you're using them in your journal. That's awesome. I'm sorry. He just came and put a bite of lunch in my mouth. Okay, I have one more secret that I want to share with you. If I can get this bite down. You forget to, Diane. I totally forget to use it all the time. All right, I'm looking for a piece of paper that I want to do this on. Okay, I'm going to do, okay. So I like this paper. This is cool paper. It's gray and it has white, and then the black is like flocked. So it's raised and flocked already. I am going to use, if I can find where I said it, here it is. I'm going to use double stick tape. Shall do, not all stamping. Some I'm just smearing for certain effects. Oh, I love it. Love it. Double stick tape is your friend. Again, remember, you do not have to have embossing ink to emboss. Let me go here. Check out this frame around this piece of paper in copper. This is double stick tape. All you need is something for the embossing powder to stick to. And that's why anything will work, including water. Any kind of ink. Just remember that as quick as it will dry, that tells you how fast you have to work. Margie, check this out. Look, look. Oh, there's our 5-minute warning. Look, look, look. I am going to take my powder tool. The very last thing of the day, I am going to remember to powder it. What's wrong with this picture? I knew you'd be laughing at me, Candy. It only takes, and actually I probably should have done that after I put this down so that it would stick to the edges really well, but I saw it and thought, don't forget. I'm going to run this one right off the edge. I want an entire border. I'm going to make an entire border of black. So I'm just going to put the double stick tape down exactly where I want it. While I'm doing this, if you don't have an embossing ink pad, think about what else you could use. Double stick tape, any other ink that you have. Like I said, pigment ink works best. It gives you enough time to work with it. Water. Now, if you're doing water, I don't recommend water. It's the most difficult because it takes a long time to dry the water on the paper and actually get to the powder. So if you do water, you need to heat it from the back first so that you can start to dry the paper, the water in the paper first before it melts and your embossing powder is done, but your paper's still wet. And yeah, and that just makes a mess because then you end up burning it. So I don't recommend water, but it does work. I mean, the point is that you can use other things as well. So I'm using the red line tape so that you can see exactly where I'm putting it all the way around as a border on this one. Sometimes I'll pull up the end and overlap it. I'm going to do that on this end here, the final end, but on the others I just went right up to it, and I'm hoping that I got close enough right up to it that there's no gap in there. I don't want a gap. If there is, then I'll take my embossing pen. When I'm done, I'll take the pen, just fill in the tiny gap, put a little more embossing powder on it.
Very funny, Margie.
What'd you say?
Give yourself 4 gold stars, but be sure there are stars and not question marks. Just like me.
4 gold stars for remembering to use my powder tool. Thank you, Margie. Thank you very much. I knew you wouldn't desert me. Okay.
Most
Sorry.
welcome, Carol.
keep realizing I'm off screen there, and it's hard to do with this arm.
I read somewhere that you can use glycerin, and there's different kinds of glycerin. There's food glycerin, and then there's art glycerin. So I ran to Michael's this morning and got this. It was 16 ounces for like $7 or $8, and then there was a coupon. And so that's what I did this morning. So I took a brush here just a few minutes ago. I took a brush. I put a little bit of the glycerin on my glass pad, and then just brushed it on, and then just put the embossing powder on and heated it per strokes, whatever I wanted. And so for background paper.
And it worked great?
Yep.
Awesome.
It worked okay.
So was the thing you read, did it say to use glycerin on your pad to re-moisten it?
Yes, they said to re-ink it, but I didn't want to try that yet. And because I just got home before we started, I just put it on my glass mat.
Yeah, and so I think that was brilliant. I think it was brilliant to try it first, and it just, again, proves that anything that is wet that'll make the powder stick. I overlapped this, so I know it's already gone from there, so I'm going to fill that in with my handy dandy little pen.
I think this was just a dollar store brush.
Wow. Okay, and now I need black. Now, this is not going to dry because it's double stick tape. So I have time to make sure I've got a black. What is this one?
And ladies, when you heat up the shaving cream paper, it smells all awesome again.
Oh, I have some of that sitting here too. What a great idea, Candy. Didn't even think about that. Smells like your man all over again. All right. I've got several blacks that are like, this is Black Sparkle. And this one says Glitter Noir, Glitter Embossing Powder. Tells me it's a little chunkier, Glitter Noir, but it appears to have a little more than black in it. And I want straight black. So I'm going to... Okay, here's Primary Ebony, and it's a regular. So that's fine. I either wanted a regular or a fine. I just didn't want a big old chunky chunk. So I'm going to bring this one over, and we'll add some black to this conglomeration here. All right. All right, so there's one side, and I can see, got to watch for fingerprints where I might have pulled up, and then it's kind of empty, or if I touch it after I put the powder down, that's what's getting difficult with this arm, is not touching it after I put the powder down. So maybe, because I know I'm having a little disability here right now, I will just powder two sides. I will heat those. Nope, because the heat's gonna melt I already took the top off those, so I have to. As I think through that out loud, if I put heat on it, the heat is going to destroy this tape over here. And I don't want to do that. I could have just taped two sides and then heated two sides, embossed two sides, and then done the other two. So it wouldn't quite be so difficult to hold. I've got a lot of black embossing powder down there, so I'm going to grab this little tool that I have and see if I can scoop some of that up and use that. Trying to get it off the top without getting all the stuff that's underneath it. Because there's a lot. Oops, just got red. That'd have been easier if I'd put it in its own tray. Sometimes it's fun just to mush it all together and see what you get. You don't really get mud like paint because it doesn't blend quite like paint. Yeah, I just have to heat this one. Okay, I'm going to try to get some of this stuff out of the center so it just doesn't become totally muddy and not touch the edge, which I already did. Okay, let's heat this up. See what we get. No big old chunky chunks. Go away, Cuppy, you're too chunky. Oh, chunky chunk kitties are okay. CK Art, the scrap chick. Colleen, hi. You changed your name, scrap chick. Welcome, Colleen. Good to see you. Okay, just going to melt this one up and we'll be finished here. There are lots of other things that we could talk about. The one thing that we didn't spend any time on, and I really didn't want to confuse, and we'll look at this more in detail on another day, was the new Tim Holtz embossing glaze. Candy used it a couple of times, but the embossing glaze is different than embossing powder.
That's pretty. Oh, that's your bottle. Oh,
yeah, it's just.
Oh, look at that! She die cut out a bottle, and then covered it, embossed it. That's plastic. Gorgeous.
It's cut out of the acrylic packaging that you get.
Oops, I touched that. That is really gorgeous. Now it actually looks like a real. It looks like a piece of glass that's been shrunk. A glass bottle that's been shrunk. That's cool looking, Candy. Like that a lot.
That one came out pretty good.
Those would make some darn cool charms, Candy.
Yeah, that's what I was cutting them for. And then this one I alcohol inked and then put the stuff on top of it. It didn't come out. It come out too dark with the alcohol ink on camera. You could still see through it, and it's got pits in it, and it makes it look like a real bottle. It's got different colorations in it.
You might need to speak a little bit louder. What did you die cut them out of? Acetate?
Yeah, these are all cut out of acetate packaging.
Okay, let me get this heated up here, and we will be done. Getting hot on my thumb.
These were done on the alcohol ink with the shaving cream.
Pretty.
Okay.
Oh, that's gorgeous.
That's gorgeous. So, yeah, a piece of acetate.
Yeah, that's what these are.
Of acetate, and she die cut. You could die. Hi, KK. Die cut anything out that you like. I love the little bottles. And then you could coat them with the clear embossing ink and then put a colored embossing powder on them. So she's made them look just like glass. Or you could color it with alcohol ink or your distress oxide. Just run the pad right over it and then do clear. If you did distress oxide, then you could do clear embossing powder over it. Yeah, those are gorgeous. They look like miniature glass bottles for sure. Those are really, really neat.
And the embossing powder makes them glossy, so they really look like bottles.
Yes. Yeah.
That's the one I just did with the
and it's a whole lot cheaper than using
Glossy
Accents. Glossy Accents.
Yes.
Okay, I'm going to quickly show you what Julie has made, and if anybody else's is in there too.
And then these are on
time to go.
The molds.
Okay.
What's that one on the molds?
The mold. Can you see? It's too bright, isn't it?
It is a little bit bright. Is it silver?
It's gold.
Gold.
Oh, that's pretty.
Gorgeous.
Yeah.
And I just did the leaf veins on that one.
Okay, so guys, she just embossed. She took the marker or just ran it lightly over the pad and then embossed the top of a mold. Okay, here's what Julie did. So this is probably one from Saturday Night Live where she put texture paste down through a stencil and then did all the color and put some embossing powder in it. Julie, I think you should not use this one. I think you should frame it.
That's very pretty.
Not gorgeous. Julie, I would pay you for this piece of art. This is gorgeous. It's one of your best works of art ever. I love it. Absolutely love it. From a slightly different angle. You should be totally proud of that. Really, really love it. It is really beautiful. Okay, I know there's some more. Yeah, it looks really awesome. Yeah, you should be pleased with it. Okay, and here Julie wrote out some words. and emboss some words. Perfect. And see, then you can just cut around those words with a, a loose bubble. Let's see, or you can punch them out. There's another one that Julie did. Wow. That angle you can really see. There you can see the embossing on it. That is cool, Julie. Very cool. Guys, please take your pictures and post them in Happy Paper People Facebook group. We love to see them and to be able to look at them up close for everybody. You can see the embossing all the way around the outside. For everybody to be able to look at them up close, and for those who weren't here, to be able to see some of the things that we did and what they're missing out on. We're going to do something like this. Ooh, those are pretty. We're going to do something like this every single Monday. We're going to make use of some of the things that you have in your stash that you've never used, don't know how to use, been afraid to use, or just needed some new ideas of how to use. So the challenge this week is to use embossing powder to do something that you haven't done before. Darn it, even with that powder tool. See, it's too small. I needed to use the bigger one, a powder buddy, over the whole thing. So I needed to just put cornstarch on this. That's what I should have done. But that's okay. I still love that piece of paper. That's really pretty. Make a pretty bookmark. So the challenge this week is to use your embossing powder in all kinds of different ways, any way you want. Post it in the group, and I will be doing a giveaway. Everybody who posts it in the group, if you you don't have to hashtag, sorry. If you tag Glynis McC in your post in Happy Paper People, Glynis will keep a list of everybody who posts things that they have used embossing powder on this week. And I will do a giveaway this week. We'll do it next Monday at the live. So it has to be between now and Sunday night to give us time to put the list together. And then Monday at the live, we will do the giveaway. So be here and you will see exactly who wins and what they get right there. The leaves were stamped with ink and then embossed. You can see the ink color through it. Love it. Those leaves look awesome. All right, Margie, what are you laughing at? Me? Yes, you, Glynis McC. When you go into Happy Paper People, it's Glynis McC. And if you just tag her in your post, then you will get into the drawing. That's all you have to do, because she'll see the tag. She will keep the list. Okay, so thanks for being here, everybody. This was awesome. It was a lot of fun. I hope you got a new idea or two. And if nothing else, Margie, you learned what not to do. You learned all the things that can go wrong. But here's the thing, guys. When something like that happens, don't think, oh, I can't do this. I'm no good at it. It doesn't work for me. It works for everybody else, and give up. Don't do that, because I guarantee every single person here who's used embossing powder has had some of these things happen, whether it's mistakes that we didn't know of until we did it, or just accidents that happen. They happen. They just happen. Sometimes we can save them and sometimes we can't. And if we can't, maybe we tear it up and use it as collage fodder, whatever. There's always some way to use it. So thank you. Perfect, Diane. There are no mistakes, just detours. Sometimes they're happy accidents. Sometimes they're just detours. No big deal. It's just all for fun, and it's only paper and powder. We had a great time. Thank you, Debbie. Thank you, Candy, for hanging with me today and trying all these different techniques. Thank you, Glynis, for gathering the list for this week for the drawing. And we will see you all next Monday for our next Marianne's Monday Jumpstart. And I can't wait to see this week all the things that you do with embossing powder. Of course, we'll see you between now and then at other things, but from one Monday to the next. And we'll get the event out there so you'll know what we're going to be doing next Monday. But the list that you gave me, and if you have things you want to add to the list, just private message me. I'll add them to the list, because we're going to be doing all these things that everybody wants more ideas of how to use. Resets. Sometimes they're just resets. That's awesome, Margie. Thank you. Thank you, Tina. I hope you had fun. We had a good time. I had a good time.
I did too.
Candy had a good time. Debbie had a good time.
Yes, I did.
and they got a few things made for their stash. So hopefully you guys do this week as well. We will have a mass make later this week, so watch for that. Oh, look at all the stamps. Debbie's been going nuts on the stamps since we did the stamp mass make.
Yeah.
And she's taken a whole bunch of them and embossed them. So do twice as many stamps and you can have a stamp stash and an embossed stamp stash for charms. Hello, Sada. Not mistakes, just learning opportunities. Hi and bye. All right, guys. Love you all. We'll see you in the group. Thanks for being here. We do appreciate your support. And a thumbs up would be great. Got a quick second before we get out of here to get a quick thumbs up. And we'll see you again. Bye-bye.
Love you.
Night, ladies. Bye. Love you guys.